All right, here we go. We are now into unit unit 7 with advanced layers. We have talked about layers in the past in previous units. This is going to take us into a little bit of a more complex situation. We're going to start to look at how we can create 3D looking models, obviously on a 2D plane, which would be your video screen. So first things first, let's kick in. Let's get a file open and let's just see what we're talking about here. I'm going to go to File and Open. I'm going to navigate over to Lesson 10 in the Lessons folder. I'm going to pretty much, I want to say it's on my desktop. Yep, there's Lessons. I go into Lesson 10. And the file we want to use is 10 start. So I'm going to pull that file up. And what you'll see is a picture of pretty much just looks like a box. And what somebody obviously created this box for you. It's got the shading and all of that stuff to give the 3D effect anyway. But what we're going to try to accomplish, quite honestly, is to put a label over this box. And we want the labels and the texts and everything that goes along with the identification of the box to lay out on these sides like it is a 3D rendering of a box. You'll notice I got my layers palette up here on the right. Again, I'll tell you what, every time I work with Photoshop, I generally have the layers palette up because, quite honestly, layers are so powerful. I use them all the time. So that's definitely one of those palettes that I have up most of the time. Again, if you don't have your layers palette up, just head on over to the window menu and you can see all of the palettes you can pull up here and just go ahead and click on the layers palette and it'll appear. I'm actually going to do a couple of things. Again, just as a review, I can pull this layers palette out if I'd like, so it's its own separate layer. I'm going to keep it docked into where it is over here, just so that I can get to the adjustments of the masks. Not that I'm going to use it in this lesson, but I like the fact I'm trying to use all of my screen real estate here. So one other thing I'm going to do, we'll open up the other piece first. You'll notice there are 3 layers in this 10 start file. We've got the background, we've got the black box, and if I click off on the black box, you'll see how this box kind of was created with the background of the shaded, kind of light shaded box, and then you've got the color of the black. And then you've got this piece called full art that comes in with the image off. So let's turn it on just to see what it looks like. And you'll notice there's something already, they've kind of already done a little bit of work with some gradients and stuff and a picture of a cell phone. And surprise, we're going to basically be making a box for a cell phone. And again, sorry about the dated nature. That is a cell phone for those of you youngins who don't really realize it. Pretty much that's how cell phones looked when they first not when they first came out, but when they were modernized. Obviously, cell phones look a little differently these days. But I just wanted you to see the full art. We're not actually going to use the full art, so I'm going to click off on that. Okay, so we've got our basis for what we're going to do. I'm actually going to go to File, and I'm going to open up one more thing to work with here today. You notice in the Lesson 10 folder, there are 4 Photoshop files, and you can see that by the icons. And then there's 3 of these files that are AI. And I know from previous units, I've told you that AI stands for Adobe Illustrator. All 3 of these pieces we're going to be working with, but they're handled a little bit differently when we pull them into Photoshop. But for this particular lesson, we're going to use this phone art Photoshop file. So I'm going to double click on that. Looks familiar. You'll see that it's basically that full art on the other picture blown out into a full picture. Just so that I can look at these 2 independently, I'm going to pull on these names. And that'll basically allow me to separate the pictures so I can just click on each picture depending upon what I want to work with. All right, so I'm on my phone art. You'll notice the layers of the phone art. If you're on the box, the layers of the box show up. These are all things we talked about in the previous layers unit. So make sure you're on the phone art layer, and you'll notice there are the phone art image, there are 2 layers within that phone art image. One is a mask, and the other is just this phone art piece. All the mask is, and they called it a mask for a reason, we're going to create a clipping mask, very similar to what we talked about with the olive oil bottle when we push the olives through the text layer to create that idea that you're looking through a certain layer to get to the back layer. We're going to do a very similar thing here. How the mask was created is just a geometric shape. That's all it is. They took some kind of geometric shape from the tools palette, created this shape, and then pasted the phone art layer in over above it. So here we are. We're going to go ahead and make this clipping mask happen. We're going to try to make the phone art layer shine through the mask layer. You kind of know how to do that from a previous unit. Again, the thing you got to worry about with clipping masks is just make sure the layer that you want shining through the mask is above the mask, and you should be okay, which it is in this case. I'm going to right click on the phone art, and I'm going to say create clipping mask. And that's kind of the piece that we want to have happen. So basically the phone art is shining through the mask shape that you see in front of you. Now what we're going to try to do is we're going to grab this this whole shape in its entirety. There you go. I haven't had enough coffee yet this morning. And we're going to move this whole shape into this other image to create another layer. But the problem you'll see when I first start is, let's say because typically when you drag something into another image, it just creates another layer. So I'm ready to go. I start dragging and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, what happened here? All it's doing is grabbing the phone art. It's not grabbing the clipping mask layer as well. So I've got a little bit of an issue here. I'm going to go to edit, step back, make sure I don't mess that up. Some of you are a little bit way ahead of me. You would say, well, Mr. Lepage, dummy, you gotta link these two layers together. I'm going to do more than that. I could link these two layers and then drag them over as one piece. But instead, what I'm going to do is head on over to the layer menu, and you've got some commands down here that allow you to do some certain things. We did use Flatten Image way back when, and that basically will flatten the whole image. And let me do it because I know I can undo it right now. But if I flatten the image, I want you to focus on this transparency behind it. The minute I flatten it, it flattens it completely. And now when I drag it over, you'll see the white of the layer shining through. Okay? I don't want that. So I'm going to step back here a couple of times. I want to unflatten. Go back to this one, click on that one, and then step backward. So that's what Flatten Image does. So it's basically going to fill in the transparency, which is this checkerboard pattern that you see, with white. The difference between flattening an image and merging down or merging visible, these two currently are going to do the same thing. But what I want to do is I want to merge down. So I'm going to highlight these two layers, make sure they're both highlighted. Then I'm going to go back to layer, and I am going to merge layers. And what you'll notice is I still have the transparency involved. If you notice, it's all basically one layer, but it hasn't flattened it right out where it's got to fill the transparency with white. Now when I move this layer into here, you'll notice I don't have the white around it because it was transparent when it came in. Major important difference between flattening and merging down. Merging down only merges the layers, does not touch the transparency of the background. If I flatten, it basically fills the background, the transparent background, with white. So there you go, big difference. So I've slid that over. I am done with this, so I'm going to close that. Don't have to save it. Don't need to anymore. And I've got this phone art layer in here. We're actually going to, real quickly, we are going to, let me just check and make sure we're going to name it the right thing. We are going to name it shape art. So I'm going to double click where it says phone art, and I'm going to type in shape art, just so that we can all stay on the same page and follow along with everybody else. So we're good to go there. I've got this shape art idea. And now we're going to go ahead and work with something called Vanishing Point. And most of the lab that you're going to do for this unit is based upon your understanding of what I'm about to do. This Vanishing Point idea is something that Photoshop does extremely well. There are other units that allow you to use the Vanishing Point. I know in a photo retouching unit, we might have used it to put a window on a house, if you remember that unit as well. So here we go. We're going to create this vanishing point on this box. And what a vanishing point allows you to do, it allows you to create that wrapping of that idea on that label, where the label wraps over the box in a certain way. So we've got a shape art layer. We've got a black box in background. Make sure full art is still off. I'm going to click on the black box. I'm going to turn off shape art just for a quick second. I'm going to click on the black box layer. And I am going to head on over to the filter menu, and I'm going to go down about a third of the way into Vanishing Point. And what pops up, this dialog in front of you, is a whole unit in and of itself of Photoshop. Let me expand this a little bit bigger so you can see the whole thing. This whole tool in Photoshop is to allow you to create vanishing points. The term vanishing point might sound odd to you. If you have taken an art class in any way, shape, or form, you would know what vanishing point is. Anytime you do any type of a building rendering, any type of architectural drawings use vanishing points. And the basic definition would be what the eye sees as it looks at a piece in certain directions. So if I generally look at this box from the top corner, let's say, I'm going to see the box a little bit differently than if I look at it from the front panel. Not to get too in depth on that. I know it's probably still early or late for you guys too, but in essence, that's what a vanishing point is. All right, here we go. We're going to create the vanishing point on this this box. Very vital that you follow along right here and do what I'm doing, because if you mess up the vanishing point, your box will be messed up for the rest of the unit, and it'll be a mess. Quite honestly, your box will not look anywhere near like ours. And we want, for this particular case, you'll get your crack at being being artistic when your lab comes out. I'm going to start in the top right corner of the front panel. You'll notice there's some tools here. I want you to make sure you're on the Create Plane tool. Obviously, we're going to be basically using a shape to create these things, and the shape that we're going to use is a rectangle. It's the one that's the most popular in this piece of vanishing points. Typically, when you do a vanishing point, you're going to use rectangles to imitate flat surfaces. So we're going to start top right. I click once to insert the point. I'm going to drag down the right side of the front panel. Then I'm going to click again. Then I'm going to drag over to the bottom left. And I'm basically creating a rectangle on the front, just the front panel of this box. The minute I click off and finish off the rectangle, you see this checkerboard that shows across the front panel of the box. That, in essence, is telling Photoshop there is a plane that you need to work with. The next step, very, very important. You might think you go back through and you create these rectangles around the sides and the top. You actually don't. If you do that, it's going to mess up your wrapping ability. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a plane, a top plane from the front plane. So I'm holding down the Control key on the keyboard. I'm grabbing the middle handle of the front plane, and what that allows me to do is to drag a plane over the top of the box. And I keep going until I get to the edge. And you'll notice that the plane comes off the box a little bit over here, and it doesn't cover over here. You can change these points just simply by grabbing these and moving them to the corners. So I'm going to grab the top, and I'm going to grab that one and move it over to the corner of the bottom and then the top. So now the plane has been stretched over the top from the front. We're going to do the same thing for the side here. I'm going to click on the front plane. I'm going to hold down the Control key, and I'm going to slide this across the back. So I've created the side plane from the front plane as well. You'll notice it's not perfect, and as I go to the top left corner, you'll notice a little like a can't play. There's a strikeout there. It does not allow me to change that point. But what I'm going to do is, and this isn't going to be perfect, I'm just going to drag down on the middle point just a little bit to get a little bit more coverage on that back corner. So there we go. I've got 3 planes that are all created from the front part of the box. I go ahead and I click OK. And we're ready to lay out this shape art on the box. So once the planes have been created, here is the process that you're going to do to put anything you want on this box. Every piece of independent text or graphics or anything like that we put on this box, you're going to go through this process I'm about to embark on. Remember, this is the same thing you're going to do when it comes time for your lab. So you're going to get, by the time you're done your lab, you're going to get pretty adept at putting stuff on vanishing points. It is a little bit tricky, so follow along as best you can. I'm going to pull the shape art back up, turn it back on, and what I'm going to do is, it all involves copying and pasting. So I'm going to make sure this is in the middle of the picture. I am going to use my keyboard shortcuts. I can go to selections, or I'm just going to make sure you're on the shape art layer. I am going to hit Control A, which is select all, or I can go to the select menu and say select all. You'll see the keyboard shortcut Control A. Either one. The other, let me deselect real quick. I'll show you another way. Just a real quick. I can go to the thumbnail, and I'm going to hold down the Control key and click on the thumbnail of the layer. And then the minute you do that, you'll see everything selected, whatever is selected within the layer. Notice the difference with select all is it selected the whole entire picture, where this one's just selecting whatever's in the layer. Either way, you're fine. I like the select all because I know I've got everything in it no matter what. I notice in the thumbnail too, it doesn't really matter because the rest of it's transparent. So I'm feeling pretty good. I got this whole, everything on this layer selected, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut. So I'm going to hit Control X, and it cuts it right out of the picture. Don't freak out. We're okay. It's still on the clipboard. I can paste it anytime I want back, and that's essentially what I'm going to do. I'm on the picture. I've got to go back to that vanishing point idea. So I go Filter, Vanishing Point, and I've got my panels here. I'm going to click off so there's no grids on the panels. And quite honestly, I'm just going to paste Control V. Takes a few seconds, and it pastes whatever was on the clipboard back into the picture. The power of this vanishing point now is that I can drag this label over the box, and it will wrap over the box. Now, this can be done one of a couple of ways. Okay, so now that I've pasted, I am going to take this label and push it on over the box. Watch out here because you can make some mistakes when you are ready to paste this label over. So if I just move the label over the box, actually it did a pretty good job in terms of wrapping that around the box. And you see how the label is wrapped over the top and the sides. Let me step back. I wonder if I can step back. Let me step back. It actually worked out pretty well for me, but there is something I want you to get into the habit of. I want you, anytime you're pasting, I want you to take this, anything you're pasting in, and I want you to grab it, and I want you to drag it down and drag it up over the box. That'll look a little bit better. You'll see what I did a little bit more when we start throwing some text in. So we've got that over the box, and that's going to tell me immediately that I did my panels right, because it would be looking at the label and taking like a sticker of the label and laying it over the box, which it laid out perfectly fine. If this doesn't look right, meaning you've got the top of the cell phone like way over here, or the colors don't match up on the side, undo and drag down with your picture, drag down the box over and then up the front of the box, and it'll make it seem like you're actually pasting that label onto the box. So that looks pretty good. I click OK. I go back to the original, getting out of the vanishing point piece, and I look at what I've got, and I've got my shape art, and it's laid out, vanished over the box, and I'm looking pretty good right now. So we'll stop right there, and we'll continue on in the next section, putting some text and some other things on this.